Welcome, strangers, to Talkumentary, a show where we watch documentaries and then get together and talk about them.
All right, big funnel, guys. Big funnel up there. Get us closer, Jeff.
God damn it, I'm trying to get closer. You don't understand what it's like trying to drive this tank. I can't even see.
Guys, I think maybe we shouldn't be here. Black people don't do this stuff. I think it's time to go.
We have to get over there. It's like you're not even driving, Jeff. I'm telling you, there's gonna be a huge one right over that hill.
Then go outside and walk because I'm trying.
I shouldn't have let you guys talk me into this.
Hey guys! Did you guys know that the formation of a tornado begins when warm, moist air near the surface interacts with cooler, drier air aloft, creating instability in the atmosphere? The instability combined with wind shear, which is one of the changes in wind speed and direction with altitude, sets the change for potential tornado development.
Why is he so calm right now?
Does anyone even know who that is? We gotta get into our episode. Hold on, everybody!
Okay, wow, rude. I was gonna tell you guys a joke about a tornado, but it probably would have gone right over your heads.
Man, are you serious right now?
Here it comes. Another episode of Talkumentary.
Welcome, everyone, to the 31st episode of Talkumentary. I am your host, Jeff Kolaski. This week, I'm going to do something a little different. I'm going to put a few things out up top, at the top of the show, because I noticed in the nice fancy analytics I get from these podcasts that no one listens to the end. So, first of all, I have to tell you, you should listen to the end of our episodes because sometimes DJ puts really fun little weird outtakes or things that we talked about off outside of the show. So you should be listening all the way through. But in case you're not and you missed the fact where I tell you that we really want you to go out and rate and review our podcast on your favorite podcast streaming services. Let us know what you think of our show. It means a lot to us getting comments from you guys. If you want to connect to our crew, you can. Just look for us on social media on @Talkumentary Podcast on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, or you can email us at info.talkumentary@gmail.com. It felt a little weird saying that up top, but I do think it's important because no one else is hearing that. So make sure you check us out. This week, friends, we jumped into our coffin on wheels and we headed straight to the eye of the storm to take a look at the crazy world of storm chasing. We braved a 67-minute twister of a documentary from 2016 called The Storm Chasing Anthology, or Storm Chasing, the Anthology, depending on who you ask. This documentary was dedicated to chronicling 6 decades of storm chasing culture told through the words and images of people who were out in the field. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to introduce our storm chasing team for today. Our fearless leader for this episode, filling the role of meteorologist, storm spotter, and photographer, none other than our very own Mr. Matt Sharon.
Hello.
What's up, Matt?
Hello. I'm glad to be here. This is exciting for me.
Yeah, this was your jam tonight.
Whoa. I'm beating my chest over here.
And in the seat right behind the driver, we have our communications and safety expert, meaning he will communicate to us that it's safer to stay inside. Mr. King James himself.
Yo.
What's up, Tampa Bay Buccaneers?
Tampa Bay Buccaneers, baby.
Normally you're in work attire, but today
I got a reprieve.
You're repping the Bucks.
Yes, sir.
How you doing today, man?
Oh, man, I'm doing great now.
You're
Relaxing.
hungry, though. You keep asking me to get you potato chips to eat on these microphones and just make me absolutely insanely upset. But, you know.
Chewing chips sound like crackling of the thunderstorms.
Oh, yeah, we could pepper that in as like a the sound of lightning claps and whatnot. Well, in the, let's see, the rear passenger side, he showed up unexpectedly during our storm chase earlier. He showed up, some might say, just like a glitch in the Matrix. He is our resident scientist. He never runs from a pun. You know him as Beard Al, your science pal, but we know him as Mr. Alex Michalak.
Hi.
Hi, Alex.
Hi, Alex.
Hello.
How are you doing, man?
Doing good. Living the dream. Thanks for having me back.
Yeah. Well, welcome back, Alex. We're glad to have you on another episode. I really enjoyed it the last time, so hopefully you get as much pleasure out of these as we do.
Absolutely.
That was not convincing. I am Jeff Kolaski. I will be serving as your driver to try to keep us on the road for this entire episode, despite the wind, hail, and lightning. What did you guys think before we get too into it? What did you guys think of this documentary? James, let's start with you, man. Because I know what Matt thought.
Okay, well, I was thinking, now they're going to be running down the street, wind blowing, everything flying around them, maybe some poles, cows, chickens, something. They just going on wild, like, wow. So I was ready for it.
And did you like it?
I liked it. Yes, I did.
Alex, what'd you think, man?
I like it. Certainly thought it was interesting. I feel like it was definitely more documentary compared to my last time being here in the Glitch in the Matrix. So it was more just like, oh, okay, like learning as opposed to thought provoking, so to speak.
This is a true to form documentary in a lot of ways. Yep. Matt, geek out on it.
Ooh, all right. So this one was great. I mean, it talked a lot about the original pioneers of what we know as storm chasing and storm spotting, which is an important thing in our society as people go out there and warn other people of impending dangers of weather.
Sure.
So I mean, this is it spanned 60 years of storm spotting and weather studying, and it was nice to see this one.
For sure. I might break your heart here for just a minute here, Matt, and I don't want to take anything away from your thunder, so to speak. But honestly, I got a little bored during this documentary. There was some really cool stuff, especially, and we'll talk about it, especially as they get further on in the timeline of storm chasing, as the technology got better and the filming got better, and the stuff that was shown to us was higher quality. Yep. So that was more fun. There was a lot I liked, but just the content of this one didn't excite me as much, at all. I'm hoping your excitement helps me to, get into this a little bit more. And that's kind of in this show. There's been times where by the end of the documentary or the end of our episode, I end up going, oh, I think I liked that more than I thought I did. So this was directed, produced, edited, distributed, and cinematographized. That's not a word. By Blake Nafty. Nafty, something like that. Streamed on YouTube. The Storm Chasing Anthology is not on Rotten Tomatoes, so I can't give you what the tomato meter score was. But I did read some of the YouTube comments because that's where this was streamed. A comment from somebody named @QuasiBlue212 says, "This is a wonderful doc. I love all the insertion of period commercials, movies, songs, pop culture, etc. to situate each segment. It had such a great texture to it." And then @Jerry Fisher says, "This was compelling from start to finish. I generally have the attention span of a gnat with ADHD, and I sat still and watched the whole of it, and that is an accomplishment unto itself." So anyway, I will put all of that credit information into the show notes. Let's get into it. If you haven't seen this documentary and you want to see it, go check it out before you listen to this. But there's really no spoilers to happen here. You either see it or you don't. Matt, let's talk about why we chose to watch the Storm Chasing Anthology this week. This is your wheelhouse, my friend. Talk to us why you chose this documentary and all that.
Well, much like the other documentaries that we do that I have chosen the documentary for, I choose out of passion. It's easier for me to talk about the things that I love, and this is truly my biggest passion that I've always been interested in since a very young age. So, it was nice to see all of the different things that they showed in this, spanning the 1960s all the way up to now.
Yeah, what got you into? So, are you a bona fide storm chaser?
Yeah, so I take yearly National Weather Service storm spotter classes just to stay in the community, and obviously not much changes in those.
Sure.
But
but still keeping up to date on what's going on in that community.
I'm not the guy that goes right up underneath it, but because
that's something I want to get into a little bit later about the different reasons why people get into storm chasing or storm spotting and things like that. And I have a feeling that I kind of know where your stuff lies. So yeah, what got you into wanting to do that, man?
Yeah. So, we'll start off when I was young. So probably about 7, 8, 9 years.
Back in the day
when I was a young lad.
Please say the rest of the podcast like that. That's right.
So I actually used to be afraid of thunderstorms.
Okay.
My aunt, when I was somewhere around 9 or 10 years old, we had a really bad thunderstorm coming through, and there was tons of lightning, tons of thunder. And she brought me to the window and told me that it was going to be okay. And after watching it for a while, I just fell in love with it.
Oh, that's cool.
And ever since then, I've studied it on an amateur level. Because I'll never claim that I'm an expert by any means, but I know enough to make good reports to the National Weather Service and all that stuff.
So you're actually going out there and you're making reports to the Weather Service, and you're spotting for, and maybe we can start to get into it a little bit, but you're spotting for reasons of like awareness and things like that.
Absolutely. This is one of the ways that I contribute to my community and surrounding communities. Whereas, in many cases, people that are hit by tornadoes, it takes first responders a while to get out there.
Sure.
So, giving people the most amount of warning they can get to prepare, because there's a lot of things people think about before they go take shelter. They want to grab some of their things, their animals, and especially out here in rural Nebraska, there's people spread out everywhere.
Yeah. Are we technically in Tornado Alley?
Oh, we most certainly are.
Yeah.
Our main season is May and June, but we see them all throughout the year. We have a chance. I mean, just a year and a half ago, we saw tornado warnings in December, the day after Christmas.
Right.
The snow-nados.
Yep. Well, yeah. So yeah, I mean, it affects us all year round.
Crazy.
Yep.
Wow.
Alex, had you seen this before this? What were your predictions? I know I kind of hit you. So we reached out to some meteorologists and stuff like that because we wanted we were hoping to get, someone smart on the show, and we thought, well, I guess we'll just do it with James and Alex instead. But sorry guys, I'm just joking. What were your predictions when I showed you what we were watching? What'd you think going into it before you watched it?
I didn't really have a lot of expectations. I just knew, storm spotting, tornado spotting is pretty exciting. You always see it on the news, and that always is like if you're watching the news, like that's the part you're like, wow, that was a cool new tornado clip they got.
Yeah.
So I was kind of just excited to see what all they were going to talk about, and I was kind of looking forward to seeing. I feel like if there's something I was hoping they would talk about, it would be like, what's the future of like storm spotting? And I wish that they had gone into that, because I did like that they talked about the history. But I think that's probably what I would have been looking more forward to is
what's the next thing?
What's the next thing? Yeah.
And did they get into like what kind of? There was a lot of failures in the early days of gaining data. Right. And that's what they were always searching for, is data. And I think, if you watch Twister, you see those little balls go up into the funnel cloud, and, then they can kind of watch what the clouds are doing. But, what are they looking for? Like what kind of things are they? And Matt, Alex, you guys who have sort of the more, whether it's Matt, your experience with meteorology, or Alex, your science beard that's just extruding the scientific knowledge. What kind of stuff are they trying to find? I mean, is there?
Yeah,
that was something.
Let me answer that question.
James,
man.
I'm gonna go out on the limb.
Come on,
and just
buddy.
make something here, and the head guys are gonna tell me if I'm wrong or right.
Let's do it. Let's hear it.
Well, because I believe that these instruments, I think what was it called? Toto, the name of the machine.
Toto, yeah.
Toto, the dog from Wizard of Oz, and
he got carried away by a tornado too. Anyway, so I'm thinking that it picked up not the dog, but it picked up the instruments. They had like sensors in each one of the balls, and these sensors tested out the temperature, the speed, and the direction and how high the tornado went.
So you're getting
this is just me going off.
Yeah, no.
what I
So
think.
you're getting data about what is happening, but does that help for future meteorological?
Absolutely.
What prediction?
Yep.
Or
So scientists they work to create these models of the atmosphere, so it helps give them a picture of what's gonna come. And if they can put this data that they collect into these models, it'll help them be able to forecast out longer. You think decades back, we didn't have forecasts where it was going to be. We knew there was going to be tornadoes 7 days out,
Right,
But
yeah.
we have that now. We know that
That's
it may
crazy.
it may not happen, but we know that there's going to be those conditions
You have
favorable
right.
to have that.
you have the
Wow,
conditions set up that we could potentially be looking at tornadic activity.
Yep. And the thing with the probes like Toto and they talk about those rocket probes that pilot was shooting, and that's to measure the data within the tornado so they can measure the changes in wind speed, temperature, density of the tornado, and all those things, because they can pair that data with radar data to help refine those computer models that help us, predict when something is going to one, increase in strength, or two, not become a factor.
I think that maybe one of the things that I wish I would have seen more of that information, like what you were just giving in this documentary. To me, there was a lot of, it was almost like a home movie of someone interviewing their family members, everyone talking about the same event that happened, 20 years ago or whatever. And it wasn't uninteresting, but I wanted to get more knowledge about why is it important to storm chase. You said at the top of the show, this is a very important thing that you do for your community and that people go out and do, and in its purest form.
Yep, absolutely.
Right? And I want to get into just a little bit we don't have to get into it yet, but the more impure forms of storm chasing that have come, and they did a pretty good job of talking about that in the film as well.
Yeah.
James, your prediction's pretty spot on for what you were expecting going into this.
Yeah, well, kind of. My excitement was built up on the hype that I was going off of the movie Twister. So I'm thinking, okay, this is going to be something close to that. But like Alex said, it came out to be more of this is what happened, this is how we began, and start talking a lot about storm chasings and the dangers of it also, and the good parts of it and all that things like that. So I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I kind of want to do one myself. I kind of want to go out there and chase one down myself.
I'll
Just
take
to
all of
feel
you,
it.
and it would be the most exhilarating time you've ever had.
I'll bet. I mean, that to me, I could see that being a rush.
I'll probably be the first black guy chasing a storm because, normally we run from the danger.
Most people don't get up and close to the tornadoes like they do, and like Reed Timmer, where he's got the tornado intercept vehicles,
Right.
and he drives right in the path of those things. Yeah, most people don't do that. Most people stay a mile away, 2 miles away.
Yeah.
Even further than that in most cases. People that aren't, that are just there for the pictures. They don't. Yeah, most of them aren't there for that.
In the involvement, how in the beginning it started off with just a guy and his camera taking pictures, and then it evolved from that. I was watching some other thing because that's what got me into it. So now I'm thinking, you first start off with a 4-wheel truck or a vehicle. Now they got these wind resistant type vehicles.
Like tanks.
How much more has that changed since you started, Matt, doing it?
You're talking about the tornado intercept vehicles?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that didn't really become a thing until the 2000s. I mean, nobody really wanted to be up close like that and get hit directly by a tornado. It was usually a probe. But, as engineering got better, vehicles got heavier, they were able to design vehicles that could withstand EF4.
Wow,
which
really?
Is, which is 200 plus miles an hour.
Jeez.
Just by dropping the vehicle to the ground and putting spikes in so it doesn't.
Well,
get
and
up underneath.
they also gave, one of the things the documentary did very well was to show a lot of the old footage and commercials and things. And I really liked, they showed like a Volvo commercial as like a storm chasing vehicle, basically. And it's funny. So Bird, my wife, used to work for Volvo, and she talks all the time about, if we could afford Volvos, that would be the safest thing to put our girls in, because those things are made out of, straight steel. They're not made of all the plastic that, our vehicles are, so I kind of chuckled like, oh, yeah, there definitely is something to that. That makes sense if they're building these things so tough. Like James and like Alex, I really did like getting some of the history of storm chasing. They talked about the farmer Roger Jensen in Minnesota taking pictures of clouds, how that's kind of, his love for just taking pictures of clouds was kind of considered storm chasing. And then you have David Hoadley, considered the godfather or the grandfather of storm chasing, known as the first real storm chaser in history. And then how that phenomena, I guess, of storm chasing exploded. And I think maybe let's go ahead and get into, I can't help to think that for the general public, this is something of a way to thrill seek. And, like skydiving, like bungee jumping, like scuba diving, they mentioned something quote unquote dangerous. If you go skydiving, that you're in danger. You don't get the adrenaline rush unless you're doing something dangerous. If you're going several yards below the surface of the water where you can't breathe without an oxygen tank, there's danger there, right? If you're going to get into a submarine and go down and visit the Titanic, there's some danger to see how brave you can be, right? To get that adrenaline dump, right? I'm not going to lie. Like James said, I'd probably go on a storm chase, but for me, it would probably be for all the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
Purists, Matt, are in it for what? So Alex, you are a science guy, a science pal, right? So, there are, to me, if you got into storm chasing, what kind of things would you be looking for? I mean, and I know maybe weather phenomena is not your area of expertise, and that's fine. I'm just curious, you've got more of the scientific type brain that wants to pick that sort of thing apart. What's interesting, if anything, to you about the storms, the clouds, the movement of the atmosphere?
Yeah. When you were talking about like the sensors and stuff, I feel like even though I wouldn't have the sensors, I'd probably like look for some of the things that the sensors, I feel like initially were trying to like teach us about, because I think like originally, I think some of the things they were really looking at with tornadoes was like, what is like the thing that like causes what's the moment that causes the tornado? Like they know it's like that there's heat rising, there's cold air coming down, but what is like the exact formula that makes it all happen? And a lot of that is like fluid dynamics, and it doesn't like, it seems weird because it's air, but it's all, everything's a fluid when you're looking at the universe. But, it's like, what is the exact like fluid dynamics? What is the exact airflow that is causing the tornado in that moment? And I think even today, like they have a lot better understanding, even within like the last like 10 and 20 years, they have like for a long time, all they knew was just that the heat's going up and the cold's coming down.
And that causes obviously a funnel, a spiral.
Yeah. Like a really good analogy I always like to think of. Have you ever seen those like tornado, like 2-liter bottle things where you swirl the water?
Yep.
Like, so when you flip over the bottle, it kind of like just like glugs, like glug, glug, glug. You have to give it a little swirl first, right? So it's like, just because you have rising heat and falling cold doesn't mean you're necessarily going to create a tornado. You have to have like a certain jostle,
So is that atmospheric pressure? Is that wind? Is that,
It's wind shear. Wind shear is the vertical lift underneath these storms, and it has to be the right amount for these conditions to be there to form the funnel.
Okay,
even the wall cloud before the funnel.
Sure. So science, I get that. I get that for being a reason to go out and do it. To me, that's a viable reason to go out and put yourself in danger, right? Knowledge, just knowing, even if you're not doing it for the sake of, writing your dissertation on this, you're just wanting to learn things. Emergency preparedness, like what Matt talked about, that to me is another obviously important reason to do that. Another thing that Matt's big into is photography. I've seen some kick-ass pictures that you've done of storms and things like that.
Right.
And, that's an art form, right? But then the other reasons are, James?
Now I was gonna ask Matt, do you got like a website that got your pictures on it?
I've got an Adobe portfolio with all of my photography on it, and it's M. Sharon Photography. If I'm going to plug my photography page,
There you go.
I'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah, M. Sharon Photography.
You know, the other reasons people go out there to do that are bragging rights, thrill seeking, right?
Mhm.
To me, this falls in. You might laugh at this, but to me, storm chasing falls into the same realm of like paranormal investigations in a lot of ways, with one big exception, and I'll talk about that. But you have a lot of amateurs that want to go out and be risky, brag about how they're doing something crazy. I mean, if you go, this is going to be a shameless plug, but if you go listen to our Sleepless Unrest episode and hear us talk about these like questionable nerds that are going out there making a big deal out of something that's not a big deal, right? They start to identify as, I am a ghost hunter, right? With most of their time is just spent sitting around not doing anything. You know, the only real difference between that and this is that storms are real, tornadoes are real, and you can prove that, and you have something to follow and all that. But it doesn't take I guess the similarity is you don't have to be a college educated, super experienced meteorologist to do it, right? Technically, with the knowledge we have in this room, excluding Matt, who obviously has that knowledge, Alex and James and I could go storm chasing.
Yep.
Right.
Absolutely.
And get a thrill out of that. But if you're going to do it, I think the other difference is, and hopefully I'm not talking too much about this, but the other difference is if Alex and James and I go storm chasing, we could potentially be not only endangering ourselves, but endangering other people around us, endangering emergency responders should they need to come after us. We also are clogging up the few roadways that are maybe around there for the people who are doing the pure work of trying to gather information or storm spot for emergency preparedness reasons and all that. Matt, what are your thoughts on that? What are your thoughts on the thrill seekers out there?
I think ever since the internet came out and data was more easily accessible, you know, radar data, that has exacerbated the personal need for wanting to go out and seek for storm chasing.
Okay.
You know, I think that it poses a significant issue for first responders, you know, as they're trying to, you know, spot these storms and make reports, you know, and check on places that were hit by tornadoes. You know, if they have to wait to cross roads because there's so much traffic chasing these, and I mean, that creates a bottleneck for the people that need to be in those areas.
Especially, I'm sorry.
And in a lot of cases, these storms are happening in rural areas where there's nasty gravel roads
That was my point.
that people have no business being on because they're from urban areas. And, you know, it poses a significant risk not only to the people that are on the roads, but the homeowners that are being affected by it.
Right.
And I'm most certainly not against it because I'm definitely an amateur on this. In the meteorology world, I'll never, like I said, say I'm an expert.
But I think to hopefully, so you know that I'm not saying that you're one of the people going out there causing a problem. You have an interest in sharing these things with the Weather Service and, you know, that sort of thing. And you also do your photography, which is your art. Yep. And I can't imagine, you know, you've told me that you're not the guy that goes out there and tries to get as close as you can and puts yourself and everyone else in danger.
No way.
You're like, let's find a good, clear spot that's not in anyone's way where I can set up a tripod for a while and watch this storm and then, you know, and call who I need to call, you know.
Yeah, first and foremost, it's about safety. You should be out there. If you're doing this, you know, your main priority should be the well-being of other people that are out there and being affected by this. Because as incredible as storms are, I mean, the human element is more important than being out there and seeking the thrill.
Right. Alex, what stood out to you about this documentary, man?
Well, kind of going right off of that, I was going to say, so one thing I thought the documentary did really well was like humanizing storm chasing. Like
Right.
you have all these storm chasers, but then like they stopped for a moment and said like they told the story about how like he had just seen a tornado like flatten this farm, and then this family like opens up their storm cellar and comes out and just looks at their devastated home,
right.
and so like they made it real. They pointed out it's like, hey, this is fascinating and exciting, but at the same time, this is affecting real people. Like this is people are dying because of these tornadoes.
Yeah.
So you can't forget that. You have to keep in mind that
Even though I'm
people's
super
lives.
passionate about storm chasing, that is the worst thing to see is people's lives being completely uprooted from
Yeah.
just a storm that lasts a minute.
And if you don't take that seriously, if you don't, if you're the guy going, "Oh, that was fucking awesome," like, "Oh my god, so much destruction," like, "Oh man, I'm so amped up right now," like, no, that wasn't awesome. I mean, it was awesome because it filled me with awe, but not in a good way.
Right.
It was something that destroyed somebody's farm, which is their way of life, or their home, which is where they obviously live. Like, that's a big deal. And I agree with you. That part was like, and I think anything in, when you're talking about natural disasters and things like that, these are just that. They are, natural forces of nature that we have no business being in the way of.
I feel like you just plugged in a Weather Channel episode of some show.
Right.
Nature's forces.
Forces of nature.
Vortexes forever. Okay,
Yeah.
go ahead.
But yeah, I just think that's something, we are living in the path of these, whether it's a volcano or a tornado or a hurricane or things like that. We have no say over that. We just observe it and hopefully show some respect to it and try to get out of its way. And it is what it is. It's awesome though. I mean, it does take your breath away seeing some of those things that are happening and all that. So
I'm going to make a bold prediction about where I think storm chasing will go. You guys wondered where it will go in the future.
Right.
I think ultimately it will come down to such preventative measures as controlling the weather. How they will do that, I don't know. But I think eventually as technology increases, I think there will be some sort of way to deflect a tornado. Yes, they're massive, but
that.
humans build massive shit all of the time.
well, and maybe even, and Alex, you chime in when we're wrong here, but if you're able to trace a tornado, for example, to when it starts considering being a tornado, right? If this one little and I'm not a meteorologist, but if this one little drop in atmospheric pressure, when combined with this amount of difference in the cold air versus the warm air, and you start seeing this fluctuation, you send out this army of drones, right? Which isn't that crazy to think about, because right now we have armies of drones that go up there and they make like a peace sign in the sky, and then they turn into this orb, for our entertainment, which means that can be used for the use of whatever. So if that goes out there and you have something like what changes, let's say, atmospheric pressure, right?
Sound.
Okay, there you go. If it's making sound, or if what or temperature. If these each if each of these drones has something. This is going to sound remedial, but something cold in it or something warm in it, that enough of these drones creates that much change in the atmosphere at that one specific spot, you cut it off before it's even a possibility. Would it have turned into a earth-shattering tornado? Maybe not, but maybe it would have. But we just prevented it. I think that's interesting to think about. I don't know if that's good. James, maybe you coming from you're more of a God-fearing man, and what are your thoughts on the idea of man basically using technology to stop or to prevent what could potentially be an act of nature? Does that give you pause?
No. No, not really.
You don't think we're causing more problems for ourselves if we don't let the world sneeze, for example? I mean, that's what I kind of equate it to. So if we have something in our lungs that needs to be gone, or in our nose, we sneeze it out, right? It's a little bit of a violent act that, we can't really stop. But if we could always stop our sneezes, well, are we doing ourselves any favor by holding them in all the time? Similarly to this, like that's where my mind goes. I go, if we're stopping forces of nature, there's got to be it's like a fart, right? The volcano has to erupt. Otherwise, something else bad's going to happen. You're going to get a tummy ache.
But just like a fart.
Spicy food.
Yeah, just like a fart, you can hold a fart and go outside and fart and everybody will be okay.
So you're talking about redirecting tornadoes?
Yeah, if you can redirect a tornado, why not? Why not? Why not do it? I mean, men have invented so many things to save so many lives. We live longer now than we done before. But ultimately, in the end, everybody's going to pass on, and they're going to have to talk to the man himself. I don't think guys going to be upset and say, hey, look, did I tell you can stop that tornado? Did I tell you can move that somewhere else?
So even if it's not having to do with, God, then just nature in itself. Like if nature is an ecosystem, which now we're getting, I think, into Alex's realm of ecosystems and am I right? Like that's kind of your forte.
Sure.
So if is messing with that, is messing with the weather, messing with that? I mean,
I've got a lot of thoughts. I
want to hear them because this is what's
going to kind of combine a couple different things together that don't really make sense in context. But I was going to say one of my other comments, my biggest dislike about the documentary was the sheer lack of Sharknadoes specifically. And in the Sharknado series, as we all know, there's all 6 episodes.
Episodes, full
movies. True.
Films. Feature films.
If you haven't seen them, they're all great. I love all of them, except for number 6, which sounds super pretentious. But that's because in the first 5, they have very creative ways of like stopping these Sharknadoes. Like in the first episode, it's like
movie.
This is
feature film.
in the first movie. Spoilers. They use dynamite and they just chuck dynamite into the tornado.
You would.
And the idea is that like when the dynamite explodes, it's like disrupting the updraft and downdraft, and then in that moment, it's hard for the tornado to recreate its vortex. So whether or not that would actually work, I don't really know. I think I'm genuinely curious. Like I think that was one of my favorite parts of the documentary was watching the guy in the airplane shooting his rockets. It's like, yes. Oh, man.
Oh, hell. Yeah, that was great to me. And we could maybe talk about that a little bit, but go ahead.
But
Continue.
So I mean, like I would enjoy someone genuinely trying to chuck dynamite into a tornado just to see if it can actually stop a tornado, because I don't think, to my knowledge, anyone's ever tried. So I think that what you're talking about with like, you think we'll be able to one day stop the tornadoes? I think that maybe it's possible. In the peak of the Sharknado series, they have this like global network of satellites that like shoot lasers at the storms, and then that disrupts like the heat dispersion.
Yeah. But is that so crazy? I mean, we all just chuckled at that, but is that so crazy to think that could be a thing?
Not at all.
To me, it doesn't seem like it.
So to your final question, like the ecosystem thing. So I know like, flooding and like forest fires and stuff, those things do play like important ecological roles, like ponderosa pine trees, like they need fires as part of their natural like life cycles.
Right.
And like flooding, like, deserts periodically have like floods, and there's like little microorganisms that are just hibernation for years and years. And that moment there's that water, they go through an entire life cycle and then lay another set of eggs that are going to hatch in like 100 years,
Right.
But to my knowledge, of all the times I've ever like taught about ecology, I genuinely can't think of an example of where like tornadoes have directly impacted like the ecology. I mean, obviously they create a lot of destruction. I'm trying to think of like the things that they would change. Like I'm imagining like a lot of trees get torn down, and that sometimes is a really important role for like old growth. Like lots of forests, they need those old trees to die,
like culling out, giving room for the
So I don't know. I don't know the full extent of like tornadoes and how they play important roles in the ecology. So that I'm really curious about that now.
Yeah.
About like, are they truly essential for the ecosystems in those areas that they are prevalent, or are they kind of like mosquitoes, where like scientists kind of accept that mosquitoes really don't play an important ecological role, and that's why they're totally fine with trying to eradicate them.
Yeah.
So yes, I don't know.
So am I. I'm good with that
question.
too.
Someone told me that they seeded clouds to make it rain with magnesium.
Yeah. That's part of like, like water, when it's in vapor form, it doesn't necessarily create a cloud. It needs like sediment. It needs like little tiny like dust particles to cling to create the water droplets. So a lot of times I'll take planes and kind of just throw dust basically out into the sky, and then that'll create the water droplets to form the clouds. So they can make a cloud form sooner instead of like dumping the water later.
Yep.
That's crazy.
Yep.
So to some extent, we are already controlling the weather.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep. That's true enough. Matt,
yeah.
what is RFD?
Rear flank downdraft. That is, normally it comes in after the storm. After the storm has passed, and it's cold air that shoots down out of the storm behind it, and it's wrapping around. And that's kind of where people think they're in the tornado, but really they're just super fast winds that are coming down out of the storm cloud.
So potentially just as dangerous.
In some cases, especially where there's debris, and that's where a lot of the injuries and deaths come into play, is people being killed by debris from the tornadoes, not being hit directly from the tornadoes themselves.
Yeah.
I seen I came home from work one day, and the effects of a tornado, I think, can carry on. That wind, you might not be a tornado, but I came home one day from work, and man, I can see the wind bending the trees as it came towards the house.
Oh yeah.
And then when it hit the house, everything just went off. I don't know what that was called. I don't know if that's cause and effect of a tornado that passed through, or what is that signs of like the speed of wind, how they can bounce off of warm air, cold air, and form after that. What's the deal with that?
Well, in most cases, there has to be a tornado in the area, to be sort of like what you're talking about. But in if you watch most tornado videos, you ever hear about how it's the calm before the storm, right?
Right.
And if you're going to be directly hit by a tornado, it gets super calm. And I mean, not super calm, but it's way calmer than what it was before. It gets way calmer than what it was before. And in a lot of cases, like the wind you're talking about, they're straight line winds, and those can be just as damaging as an EF1 tornado.
Yeah.
I mean, 90 to 110 miles an hour.
I know you hear on the news all the time, like, we might not see tornadic activity, but you expect to see, straight line winds, and that can be just as important.
Absolutely.
So to bring us a little back to the documentary, I have, and I could see it in the people they talk to, a lot of respect for the pure form, like we talked about, of storm chasing, the scientific research, the understanding, that's huge. To me, when they talked about, it was really neat to hear about Neil Ward. He was the first meteorologist to successfully anticipate, track, intercept, and then document a tornado, which is pretty sweet to look at your charts. And this is all before the internet had satellites doing all these, readings and all that. You're looking at your charts. You're looking at your barometers and your, temperature or thermometers and your, whatever. And you're going, I think we might be in the realm of tornado, and it looks like it might hit over here. I'm going to go over there and see. Sure enough, there it is. You document it, you intercept it, and that's huge. That's information that can save lives, and that's what I think is awesome. The thrill seekers out there that we talked about, not to beat a dead horse, but the storm chasing tours, that kind of stuff. That to me, and then you get into the scripted like reality shows and shit like that. Like that's just bad. That's just dumb, and it's a bad representation of what it is, and it oversaturates each storm, makes it harder for science to come in. Yeah, so that to me is a little bit of a.
You can blame the Weather Channel for that. They used to run hours and hours, and this is kind of how I fell in love with storms itself.
Yeah.
But they used to run hours and hours of documentaries about people being affected by tornadoes and severe weather. But then Discovery Channel took it to a whole new level when they had to dramatize the job that these meteorologists were doing. I mean, their job was legit. They were going out for data, but the Discovery Channel, they dramatized the crap out of it.
Well, they had to. They were trying. Well, they didn't have to.
I know a lot of that storm chasing. I mean, how does that affect like the family, your family and stuff? Because I know a lot of ladies said she had to quit. She had to cut it down because she had other things to do, but she still had the thrill that wanting to go get it done. I mean, the cost, the equipment, and all that stuff. Is that really like high costing something that?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, anytime you take a technology that's cutting edge and you make it mobile, it gets way more expensive. And not only just the equipment, but the power needs that you would have to have in your vehicle. I mean, that gets expensive in itself.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I wanted to talk a little bit about, a big part of this documentary was the footage and the photographs of storms. And I get the feeling that these nerds that are taking the photos, Matt's one of them. So I say the term lovingly.
I'm a proudly self-proclaimed weather nerd.
Yeah. So they all are very careful to make sure their name is on that. They're very protective of their footage and photographs. And, they keep scrapbooks of the storms that they chased and pictures that they took. And they hold on to them like trophies, and I got to imagine that's a point of pride. That's like, that is a trophy, right?
Yeah.
I mean, talk to me about that. Is that like, I would imagine you're like watching these photos carefully and going, make sure that's not the photo I took of that storm, because I better be getting something for it, and or I should get the credit for it, and or just the.
For me, my photography is simply so I can share it with people. I'm not the one that's going to yell copyright. I do put a watermark on my photos just so that people know that I took it. But no, if somebody uses my photo for something, all the more power to them. It just makes me more proud that my work as a photographer or videographer earned that spot as something of quality that you could show the world.
It might be a different story though if you were making your living off of.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Because obviously we work together, so I know how you make your living. You're doing art for the sake of art.
Yep.
You're doing, and that's, in a lot of ways a purer form of art.
Yeah.
But, some of these meteorologists and storm chasers are probably making at least part of their living off of selling these photos to whoever and needing the rights for those. Which makes sense.
A lot of them are meteorologists that are out there on grants from the government to study it. They got their big weather trucks out there, and yeah, these are privately funded groups. A lot of times from the government.
Yep. James, let's go to you, man. Something stood out about this documentary to you?
The thing that stood out, what Alex has mentioned was.
No, your standout, not Alex's standout.
Oh, okay. Well, Alex has said something. This stood out to me. Because I was thinking the same thing. These guys have been doing this like for the thrill, some of them. And it became serious, and I had to give it to you, Matt. Storm Chasing did improve the weather stations and give a lot of information to it and save lives on top of all that. But the thing is, but the guy, when he said they flattened the farm, and he came out and he saw the faces on the people.
Yeah.
And it brought tears to him. But he just kept walking. But he said that's when it hit that these storms are real. They affect lives.
Yep.
And then when they lost their friend, that brought home how really dangerous that this is. These guys they're real scientists, and they went out for something real. and they got caught. Well, I think it was an F1, and that was something that snatched them out the door and found the other guy still in the seatbelt, died. That brung home. So this is a serious thing. It may be a fun or thrill-seeking thing, but for them to see reality, that's what I like.
And some of the most quote unquote fun adrenaline fueled things are that way because there's danger. I mean, you walk away from it, your head held high and your hands shaking a little because you're dealing with that after dump of, you've got these guys out there getting ready to deploy Toto and they're going deploy, like in true nerd fashion. And they're all amped up on adrenaline because they're going, this is what we've been sitting around in a room waiting to happen.
This is why I got my cape. I'm gonna dive into it now.
And in that same note, I guess I think there was something we haven't touched on yet there was some real humor in this documentary, in the editing, in the cut scenes and things like that. There was some pretty funny stuff. Like I said, kind of at the beginning, there was a lot of, I'm just trying to talk about one of my favorite little funny spots. There was a lot of really good old found footage of old commercials, TV shows, stuff like that. But one of my favorite parts was on one of this guy's like B-roll little cut scene graphic deals. There was a scene where whoever was narrating said that they drove someplace, and it was a cut scene of an obvious toy car rolling over a map, right? Yeah. And it said in the bottom in little letters, reenactment. And I was like, oh, that's funny. Did you guys catch that?
I did not, but that is funny.
So if you watch it again, there's like a green toy car that is rolled over a map in reenactment. So that was funny. I also couldn't help but laugh at the nod to nerddom when they named Storm Track because it sounds like Star Trek. And they had Leonard Nimoy. So he hosted the very first TV show about storm chasing, which I'm sure gave all those nerds the biggest nerd boner they've ever had. Watching Mr. Spock, talk about their storm chasing, which is, and I say this all with love because I would too if it were me. And then the last thing that I thought was really funny, and there was some little edits there where they'd like ding, like where they were like showing part of the map, they'd like ding, they'd point a little finger or something to the spot. But when they were talking about the Weather Channel and they were talking about it amping up and how the Weather Channel went out and was saying like, hey, they kind of accelerated, like you said, the rise of storm chasing because they were basically saying, give us the best footage you have, give it to us quickly, and we'll pay you money for it. Yep. Well, that sent people out the door going, give me that money and put my stuff on TV. But people get so excited. But my favorite line on the Weather Channel is like, the guy said, homogeneous. And I could say that on cable TV.
Yeah, I did catch that one.
Like, what? Anyway.
I like that. Homogeneous. Huh?
Are you homogeneous? What is homogeneous?
Homogeneous.
Yeah, it just means like consistent, not separated, mixed thoroughly.
Oh, so that's what it is. Huh? Okay.
Oh, I was going to say, here's a tidbit that I... if there's storm chaser people out there listening, and Matt, of course, here's my personal wish list in the weather to do, I suppose. One of the things that I've become fascinated with is something called TLEs, or transient luminous events. And I think that whoever this very small community is like the biggest nerds out there, because everything they've discovered, they've given the nerdiest names possible. It's one of the most, one of the first things discovered is called a sprite. And it's basically like this.
I love those.
Yeah. It's like red lightning that happens over the clouds.
Upper atmosphere.
Yeah. So you got to be super far away. Like you can't be up next to a tornado because you got to be far enough away where you can see
60 to 100 miles.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Wow.
Yeah. So it's like when you're not, it's like an extra challenge mode to the storm chasing, because you have to know where the storm's going to be and how to be far enough away from it to see over it. Yeah. So yeah, Sprite's one of the like kind of like the first things that was discovered. But then I was trying to like read through like the Wikipedia page, but they've got ghosts, trolls, I think there's like giants. Everything is like some sort of something straight out of D&D. Yeah.
That's funny.
And so, and because it's such a new phenomena, like there's not a lot of pictures out there. And so, that's something that I hope emerges. I want to see more photos, because cameras are getting better. So
there is a Facebook group on there that is dedicated to photographing sprites. I can't remember the whole name of it because it's a long name group, but if you search for upper atmosphere, you'll most certainly find the red sprite photographing.
That's cool.
Is that another thing though? I know tornadoes are big, but storm chasers also the storm itself. The big wall cloud, the cumulus.
Okay, so that's an interesting thing to talk about.
That. Wow.
Yeah, so thank you, James. And storm chasing is not just tornadoes, correct?
No.
So what other things are you looking for? They kind of leaned heavily on the tornado aspect, and I think I got caught up in that tornado, no pun intended, as well. But I looked at Alex like, please laugh. I know it's a good one if Alex laughs. But what else you're just chasing any storms for any reason, or?
I think ultimately when you chase storms, you're looking for the most severe portion of it. But no, people chase hurricanes. Reed Timmer, the guy that was in this, he does that. He'll go down on the coast when it's hurricane season. He will chase these things. Just watching the storm surge, the embedded tornadoes that are within it, because in a hurricane, you could easily have super strong, small, brief spin-ups. And some of them can be long track, like 30, 40 miles, and some of them can be just short-lived, but they're just as damaging as anywhere else.
Wow.
So, but yeah,
That's
there's many reasons people storm chase and many different ways to do it.
Cool. So, the thing that kind of got a lot of people into storm chase, and this will maybe be the last thing we talk about before we get into like how we felt and whatnot, but this might add into a little bit about how we felt. Then there was Twister, the film, right?
Classic.
The first movie to glorify and bring attention to storm chasing. Also, James, I shared with you a little tidbit, to use Alex's word, of information earlier. Twister was also the first movie to be released on the high-tech video format known as digital versatile disc, or the DVD. Did you guys know that? It's the very first thing to be released on DVD.
Not surprised.
We got to watch the baddie Helen Hunt in her prime, and Bill Paxton out there chasing storms.
Rest in peace.
Making it look like something we all could do, to be strapped to a pipe and get sucked up into a tornado and be perfectly fine. I remember. You guys all seen that movie?
Yeah. I think that movie actually was good. I really think it was good because
it's fun.
It took a whole bunch of what they did research and then hyped it up. You're looking up into heaven, you see that tornado, like, wow.
I felt like
no arms getting ripped off or nothing.
Right. Yeah, I know.
Like 500 miles of wind, F5 tornado.
You've got boards flying around, you have pieces of barn and a cow flying around, and you're just fine. Nothing's hitting you.
Man, let me use my belt to hold myself down. What? Oh,
right. Matt, it seemed like a lot of the storm chasers almost had a little bit of a distaste for that movie.
Yeah.
Was I reading that correctly?
Yeah, in some cases, yeah, because the physics are a little bit different. In the scene that they showed in the documentary of the tractor falling straight down, I guarantee you, if a tornado picks up a piece of debris, there is nothing falling straight down. So yeah, it doesn't quite depict the fundamentals of how debris would actually behave in a thunderstorm.
I suppose it probably is along the same lines of a doctor not liking to watch medical dramas because of how fake,
absolutely.
When it might be good entertainment, but if you're going to talk about the reality of storm and storm chasing and what they do and what was just like the surgeons going, you would never give that medicine for that, or you would never ask for. It's so stupid that they'd ask for suction, and they're doing that. Obviously that's it's an entertainment piece, but
Yep.
Yeah, I like the part where the two
Helen Hunt.
dancing tornadoes over the water,
Yeah.
and that's this way everybody knows that is called a steam devil.
a steam devil.
Yeah, steam devil is when it forms over the water like it is, And since we're speaking at some more information, I learned is that the little leaves that blow around in the building that you see outside, it's called a eddy.
An eddy,
A eddy.
little eddy.
Not the thing that goes down the middle of your forehead, the extra hair that grows down, but
That's a widow's peak.
That's a widow peak.
Yeah.
We
that's
call
what
it an eddy. We got it off of what's the name of that movie, The Addams Family.
Oh yeah. Wow. Okay.
Eddie Munster.
okay.
Ah,
The
yeah.
Munsters.
That's why we call it
Not the
eddy.
Addams Family.
Mhm.
The Munsters.
The Munsters. Okay, the Munsters.
All right. Anything else you guys want to talk about before we get into how we feel?
I
Talk
actually
about our feelings.
I want to say something about Twister. Even though Bill Paxton is now not with us anymore, next year they will be releasing a sequel to Twister.
Really?
Yep. So
I
so
can't wait
keep
to
that
see
on your
that.
radar.
Is it going to be called Twoster?
Twister 2.
Twinster.
Oh, that's one better.
Yeah.
Is it
Thanks.
going to have a good plot twist?
I do that.
Yes.
Lord, here we go.
Ooh. Or should I say moo?
I do got a question, Matt, before we go. How is it that they rate the F1, F5s? Is it by the debris that flies?
It's by the damage that's caused by the tornado.
So they can only rate it afterwards?
Yep. It can
Oh,
only be rated
okay. I didn't know
afterwards. It
that.
can be estimated. Somebody who's been studying weather can estimate the radar data that comes in. Like they know how fast the wind is blowing. Like they can tell, right?
Mm-hmm.
So after a tornado hits an area, the National Weather Service comes in and surveys the area for damage, and they look for snapped trees. They look for solid buildings being penetrated by other limbs, or just they measure it based on the amount of damage.
Okay.
And
That's interesting. I
And,
didn't
they
know
use
that.
the wind speed too.
Like the shotgun in the tree, they play, that just show. It take a lot of force to sit a shotgun through a tree. Or the records stuck inside or something else.
Yeah.
Going through concrete.
Yep.
Wow.
Pretty wild. All right. So how did we feel after watching? Alex, let's start with you, man.
I feel fine.
Okay. James, how do you feel?
Well then.
Once again, I feel like I gained more knowledge. I like gaining more knowledge and stuff like that. So I like it.
Yeah.
I like Storm Chasers. I gain stuff.
Very good.
Yeah.
Alex, we'll go back to you, man. I was
Yeah,
just
no,
listening to you.
it was good. It was good. I think it was good, knowledgeable. In the end, I feel like we kind of said at the very beginning, I almost felt like they had an agenda. Like I feel like when they got to the part where they were talking about the TV shows about storm chasing,
Yeah.
it kind of felt like they maybe made this documentary to kind of like make like a real documentary to show like what it's really about. So I think that it was nice to see like the true perspective, and I think that is a really unique perspective that I enjoyed.
Absolutely. And this documentary was exactly that. I mean, it shows a perspective from the people that have spent their entire lives studying this versus the average storm chaser.
Sure.
Because the reality of storm chasing is that it's just as dangerous for the experts as it is for you and I to go out there. Just like the story about Tim and Paul Samaras. Some of the original pioneers of some of the greatest engineering feats of studying weather. And it's dangerous. So
Yeah. I'm going to be honest, and I was honest earlier on. I didn't make it to the credits in this one.
No.
This is the first documentary that we've done for this show where I actually didn't make it all the way through it. I stopped. I only had like 15 minutes left or something, so hopefully I didn't have.
You didn't miss much.
Missed the stunning conclusion.
No, there wasn't.
Yeah.
There wasn't anything.
I was having a hard and maybe again, films, movies, documentaries, TV, whatever it is, for me, it all relies a little bit on the mood that I'm in when I watch it. And, there are certain things that, in a perfect world, I would watch all these documentaries when I'm exactly in the mood to watch this specific documentary. But the reality of doing a weekly show is that sometimes I have to sit down and watch it when I don't necessarily feel like sitting down and watching it. So I think that had me distracted a little bit. I do think it was very nicely done. I think the editing was clever. I think for one guy to basically make this whole film was a pretty fantastic thing. The timeline was good. I liked that. I agree with Alex that they spent a lot more time on the history of storm chasing as opposed to going into what it is and what it could be. But that's okay. The footage was pretty cool. The interviews were relevant. They had they had people out there in their real selves talking about real frustrations and real things that they were going through. I guess my question is, what was the message that was, what was the point of it? Was it just what Alex said, to just show the real life of a storm chaser? Was there some kind of information or knowledge? When we do it's like Plastic Paradise, for example, we know what the message there is.
That's right.
When we watch, our very first one, 13th, we know the message is, awareness and things like that. What was the message here? Was there one, Matt?
It's kind of hard to take the message. I mean, depending on who you are, the message really just varies. I mean, if you're a storm chaser, the message is, this is what it used to be like 60 years ago. This is what it's like today.
Yeah.
For the average person watching this with no meteorological background, the message is that weather is intense, and a lot of people have studied it over the years, and this is where we're at nowadays. So that's what I think.
Was just to bring it to light.
I think that's the message for it.
Yep, to bring it to light, to let you know what this is about, and some people are going to grab it, and some people are not going to grab it.
Yeah.
And I think I grabbed it, and I like it. I like it. I mean,
I think
reality.
For sure. And I think a big, anytime somebody's really into something, you want to show other people what you're into.
Yep.
And to some people, like myself anyway, maybe they don't find it as interesting. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't be proud of it, that it's not important, and that other people won't find it incredibly interesting. We do a podcast about documentaries. Some people don't care about this, Believe it or not, ladies and gentlemen, there are people out there that don't care about our show.
Yeah, I feel sorry for you guys. I feel sorry for you.
Boo them.
Right. And, but we find an interest in it. We find a joy in talking about it with each other. Whether or not that documentary was perfect in my eyes doesn't matter, because somebody showed the world what was important in their life. And to me, that's beautiful in and of itself. And it's worth the time. It's worth this show. It's worth the energy. It's worth, so I think it was a very well done piece, and yeah.
And that's what Talkumentary is about anyway. Different perspective of how we receive and receive it, and how to talk
we all
about
conceive in about the right way, in the same way.
Well, okay.
Except for seahorses.
Seahorses, yeah.
It's how we receive it, and then how we talk about it.
Yeah.
I like the different attitudes. I like the different people and different mindsets. So.
Yep. Yep. We're big on that here. Alex, anything to add before we get on to our ratings?
Did you know that tornado is a portmanteau of the words tronada and I forgot what it was. It's two Spanish words. Basically, it means thunderstorm and swirl. So when a portmanteau, you combine those two words together and you get swirling thunderstorm, also known as a tornado.
Go ahead, add some kind of a dad joke or pun to the end of that, and this will be your plug for...
Sound like a twist of a story to me.
You can use it's going to go over your head if you want.
Yeah, it's gonna go over your heads,
Okay.
obviously.
There you go.
No.
All right. So we've come to the time in our show where we need to rate this documentary with an official documentary rating. Each crew member scores the documentary on a scale of 1 to 10 items, with 1 being as bad as most of the haircuts in this documentary, and 10 being as great as a cocktail chilled with hailstones, which, by the way, I thought was really cool.
I did too.
What was the guy's name? Fuji something, the Japanese guy.
Fujita?
Yeah,
Is that how you
Fujita.
said it? Yeah.
Yeah, he was like, he saved a few of the
What a power
hailstones.
move.
Yeah, and then went and had a cocktail over them. Like, yeah,
I'm
all
not
right.
gonna lie, I've done that.
Dude, I love it.
Oh, yeah.
When I drank,
Yeah.
I definitely collected hailstones. And
Dude, next
Try
time,
that. I'm gonna try
if
that.
we get big hail next time, I'm saving some. I'm gonna have me a Waterloo right over the top of it.
I'm gonna have my martini. I'm gonna let everybody know. You know,
All right,
this is
fair
what's
enough.
gonna happen.
You are a grown man. You are of age.
Yeah.
You can have an adult beverage if you do
thank
so
you.
responsibly,
Thank
and
you
you're
very
not at
much.
work. Yeah.
Mhm.
All right. The item that's used each week for scoring changes depending on the content of that documentary. This week, we will be using flying cows, and it's also an acronym, flying COW, which means coffin on wheels. So, flying cows. Matt, how many flying cows do you give your pick for a documentary? The Storm Chasing Anthology.
I gave it a 7. You know, I've seen
Okay.
a lot of documentaries. I prefer the ones that have more data in them. But I imagine as time goes on, documentaries about storm chasing will include more data and better videos and stuff like that. So 7 for me.
Very good. Let's go to Beard Al.
I gave
Flying
it
cows.
I gave it 6 flying cows.
6.
I thought it was interesting, but definitely not exhilarating.
Okay.
Kind of like you mentioned, like it was not super attention grabbing the whole time.
Yep.
So, and there wasn't like you're not constantly learning. A lot of it was very like repetitious. So, so interesting, not the most exciting. So kind of in the middle ground, 6.
Yep. And Mr. King James.
I gave it 6 also.
6.
Yep.
Okay.
I like it. I like the real how it was real to people, and I like the knowledge and understanding that it brought to me. And
Wonderful.
and I want to might go out there and chase some storms. See,
Yeah. All right. So for my rating, I gave this 5. It's right in the middle. Not bad, not wonderful. It wasn't boring, but it also didn't hold my attention. I mean, I guess I was bored sometimes, but I don't think it was a boring documentary. I just think I got bored in it. But 5 flying COWs. After averaging everyone's scores together, the official documentary rating for the Storm Chasing Anthology is 6 flying cows. I want to thank everybody who's been hanging out with us today, who's listened. If you made it to this point in the episode, thank you so much for staying here. You just
thank
bumped our analytics way up. I love that.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. If you let's try something. If you this is off the cuff right here. If you are listening to this point in the episode, get on our YouTube page and comment on the video for this episode and say the words. Alex, give us something that they need to comment.
Portmanteau.
Portmanteau. If you comment portmanteau on our YouTube, you can expect a shout out on the following episode. Yeah, there we go. That'll be fun.
Yep.
Show us that you're listening. So, special thanks to our portmanteau himself, Mr. Beard Al, your science pal, for joining us, gracing us with your scientific brain, sir. Thanks.
Yeah, anytime.
Hope you had fun. Anytime?
Well, you know, without outside of work hours, obviously.
Well, we all work too, so
Yep.
this doesn't pay any bills yet. So all it does is rack up the bills. But, you know, that's all right. King James, as always, thank you, my friend.
you're welcome. Thank you guys for attending.
I'm glad to attend.
Thank you for coming to my throne room and bowing at my feet.
Hey, that's what I'm saying. They say it for me. I don't have to say it at all.
I will be your throne room announcer.
Okay, thank you. I need that, you know.
Matt, man, thanks bringing your love of storms,
Thanks, Jeff.
weather to our show. It was fun to talk about this with you. I liked this hangout better than I liked the documentary, so thank you for that.
Yeah.
I want the three of you to know that if we ever go storm chasing, I'm driving. All right.
Yep.
Now,
I'm not going. I told you black people really don't do that. But at the video, I am going to do it once.
break down the walls.
I'm
Just
breaking
like
the walls
Chris
down.
Jericho, man. Break the walls down.
I'm going to break the walls down. Find me at F6.
There you go. Let's talk about next week's episode. For next week, we will be pulling or pushing nails through our tongues. And we're going to let TVs fall on our heads in a magic show of a documentary called The Amazing Jonathan. What begins as a seemingly ordinary profile of a dying magician becomes an unexpected and increasingly bizarre journey as the filmmaker struggles to separate truth from illusion. The tagline for this film is Magic, Meth, and Mayhem.
Holy shit.
Yeah, this is Bryce's pick. I'm real excited for it. He is in love with this documentary. I have not seen it yet. Have any of you guys seen The Amazing Jonathan?
No,
but I'm gonna.
interested.
Yeah.
I'm interested right now.
Yeah, I know. It looked
Psychological
pretty.
things are going to be happening in this baby.
Yeah, basically, from what I understand, it's a musician / comedian who got really into drugs, and just the story of him. So, everyone, go check out the documentary The Amazing Jonathan before next week's episode. It can be streamed on Hulu, so check it out so that you don't have to leave our show and go watch it for our spoiler alert next week. And join us next week as we practice our meth-fueled magic, one documentary at a time. So I told you at the top of the show, go out, rate, review, look for us at Talkumentary Podcast on all the things. info.talkumentary@gmail.com is our email address. On behalf of Alex, Matt, King James, DJ in the booth, and the entire Talkumentary family, I am your host, Jeff Kolaski. I want to thank you all for listening. I hope you keep your minds open and be kind to each other.
Be a good human.
Be a good not human too.
And be careful of the storms.
That's right. Keep your eyes to the sky.
Get out! Get out of the storm! Drive away!
It's fine. We're good right here.
Where'd Alex go?
I'm good. I got an umbrella.
It's when you can't see them at their most dangerous. They sneak up on you.
Like a whirlwind. Oh.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.